Hello everyone, welcome back to Bad 90s Mixtapes. I am the Jakeweo. That was my version of the skank, the official dance of ska and sometimes reggae music. Real talk, low-key, this genre is the entire reason why I wanted to do a series like this in the first place. Not sure if I've ever mentioned this before, but 90s music was inordinately enamored of weird novelties. These quirky little mini crazes that sort of took the mainstream by storm for a brief time and disappeared almost just as quickly. And to me, ska was one of the most memorable. This is third wave ska, or revival ska, it is sometimes called. I'm just going to start with a list of bands that I'm not going to be discussing in this video. Sublime, they should have their own video. No Doubt, ditto. Smash Mouth, I already did a video about them. 311 were rap, rock, and reggae. I really didn't hear a whole lot of ska in their sound most of the time. Alright, so history lesson part 1. Ska originally started in Jamaica in the late 50s when a bunch of traditional calypso and Caribbean bands and musicians started to play more American-style jazz and rock and roll and rhythm and blues. And they came up with their own way of playing it, which eventually got referred to as ska. The first wave of ska consisted of bands like Toots and the Maytals, the Skatalites. A lot of that stuff got really popular over in the UK, which led to the second wave of ska, which is sometimes known as two-tone ska. And that consisted of bands like the Specials, Fishbone, Madness. That brings us to the 90s. 90s is the decade where third wave ska became popular, first in the underground and then in the mainstream. So I'm going to randomly shuffle through my playlist on Spotify, Bad 90s Mixtapes Ska. I'll put the link to the playlist in the description of this video, so you can follow along. The Aquabats. The Aquabats were often thought of as ska's answer to a band like Devo. To me, they sound a little bit more like a ska version of They Might Be Giants. They have this sort of gimmick of dressing up like this team of villainous henchmen. So they all wore matching outfits, and they all had on these helmets and these goggles. It was all very silly. It was also very 90s kitsch. It was riffing on a lot of popular pop culture images that people recognized and transforming them into a newer context. I think they had their own TV series at one point, too. The Aquabats came from Orange County, California, and their lineup included, I think they had about 9 members, but their original drummer was Travis Barker, who later joined Blink-182. This is the song Super Rad from their 1997 album The Fury of the Aquabats. So I think the appeal of ska music in general is that it was just very jaunty and jumpy and upbeat. It was just really fun, ridiculous music that didn't take itself that seriously. You can hear a lot of the common features of ska music in this song. You can hear the guitar/keyboard riff is playing only on the upbeats, like you can hear the walking bass lines. And you heard the horns in the beginning of the song. Yeah, I think a lot of bands at the time were sort of playing around with comic book imagery or, secret identities, growing up on a mind addled by Saturday morning cartoons. The Mighty Mighty Bosstones. The Bosstones are from Boston, Massachusetts, and this is the song The Impression That I Get from their 1997 album Let's Face It. The Bosstones were around for a very long time before they got popular. Their first breakthrough to the mainstream, I think, was when they appeared in the movie Clueless. This ended up being probably the biggest hit of the entire genre, in my opinion. I think what I like about it is it remains very accessible as a pop rock single. You don't have to really be into ska in order to enjoy it. It's just got this really straightforward songwriting structure. It's got a really solid hook. And those horns are playing just very few notes. They're not really dominating. They're kind of playing almost a background riff. Oh, the Bosstones pioneered Ska-core, which was the combination of ska music with more harder-edged punk sounds. And you can hear that even in the chorus of this song, when the guitars stop playing the upbeats and they start playing much louder, heavier riffs. And the vocals kind of go from quiet speak singing to more rowdier screaming and gang vocals. And you go Ska-core here. And I think what makes the song memorable is it's kind of a confusing setup. It doesn't really resolve its own question. It's as well, I never had to, knock on wood. I think nobody could really figure out what that was supposed to mean or where they were going with that. Oh, and my favorite thing about the Bosstones is they had this one guy who was always on stage with them, who was credited as a band member who went on all their tours, performed at all their shows, but all he did for the band, he didn't play any instruments, he didn't sing any vocals, all he did was dance around on stage like an asshole. That guy is my hero. Suicide Machines. This is the song SOS from their 1996 album Destruction by Definition. The Suicide Machines were from Detroit, Michigan. They were not from California, unlike a lot of these bands were. And to me, they played a much harder, almost more on the hardcore punk side of ska. You know, and they were a little more political. I think later on their sound ditched ska entirely and just went straight to political hardcore punk. But you can hear the roots of that in their debut album here. You know, ska tends to be an upbeat, jaunty form of music, but this is like an attempt to do it a little darker, a little more serious. Sort of like political reggae in a way. Real Big Fish. Now horns are really dominating this one. This is the song Sell Out from Real Big Fish's 1996 album Turn the Radio Off. And the whole concept of the song is the tension of trying to make music for money, but also wanting to stay true to your principles and not wanting to work your day job anymore. Comes off as a little defensive to me, to be honest. I always had problems with the backup vocals in this song. I feel like the harmonies, it's not as though they are off key. It's more that they're mixed a little too loud for me. It's like nobody told the guy that when you sing backup, you're actually supposed to let the lead singer still be louder. It's like they don't know how to blend their vocals together. The backup singer is too loud and too high. Horns that the song starts with is probably the part that I enjoy the most. I don't think the rest of the song really lives up to the promise of that opening. Rancid featuring Stubborn All-Stars. This is a song I Want to Riot. It's actually a re-recording of the original version of the song, and it's from the Beavis and Butthead Do America soundtrack. The original song was just Rancid. This version of the song features the Stubborn All-Stars also playing on it. It's kind of a cheat because Rancid weren't always a ska band, but they did a lot of ska stuff. They were mostly a punk rock band. This is all with Stubborn All-Stars. Rancid didn't have any horn players in their band normally. Incidentally, Rancid were made up of former members of Operation Ivy, which probably started the whole ska punk thing of the 90s, with their 1989 album Energy. I've always been more of a fan of Rancid than of Operation Ivy, personally. This song is sort of Rancid's version of White Riot by The Clash. Their response to that is just, I Wanna Riot. So this is the version featuring Stubborn All-Stars. I'm going to play you a little bit of the original version of I Wanna Riot. So you can hear there's not as many horns in this version. Ooh, this is the song Jump Right In by The Urge. This is from their 1998 album Master of Styles. My wife tells me this sounds like a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. I never heard it personally. The Urge were a band from St. Louis, Missouri. They weren't always ska, but they did play a lot of different styles. They played a lot of funk, metal type of stuff. And they had horns in the band. They had horns as part of the lineup. This is right at the tail end of the mainstream rock ska craze. Probably the last song I remember really getting a lot of radio play in that genre. Save Ferris. This is very clearly a ska punk cover of the song Come On Eileen by the band Dexy's Midnight Runners from 1982. Save Ferris were a band from California, Orange County. like a lot of these bands were. This is about 1997. It's from their album It Means Everything. And I think this is where the 90s started to indulge itself in some premature 80s nostalgia. The 90s couldn't wait to be nostalgic about the 80s. I don't know what the hurry was. They just couldn't let the normal cycle of nostalgia run its course. They tried to make it happen, I think, a little too soon before it was ready. And so a lot of bands got popular in the 90s doing covers of 80s songs because the 80s were already the nostalgia decade of choice. Dancehall Crashers. This is the song Lost Again from their 1997 album Honey I'm Homely. Dancehall Crashers came from Berkeley, California, the same part of California that Rancid came from. Apparently certain members of Rancid were originally part of the Dancehall Crashers' early lineup. Dancehall Crashers had the unique lineup situation of dual female vocals, which you don't see a lot in music in general, but especially not in this type of genre. They're like the B-52s of ska, almost. This is Buck-O-Nine, and this is the song My Town from their 1997 album 28 Teeth. This is the song you heard in the intro. Buck-O-Nine did come from San Diego, California, so you can see why they felt the need to write a whole song about their town. You gotta love any genre that gave false hope to band geeks everywhere that they'd actually learn a useful skill. Goldfinger. This is the song Here in Your Bedroom from Goldfinger's 1996 self-titled album. And it starts out a little bit more like a reggae song before turning into ska. I think Goldfinger covered 99 Luftballons at one point, speaking of bands in the 90s who got popular doing covers of 80s songs. And then it becomes a full-on pop-punk thing over here. Goldfinger are one of those bands that I always enjoyed, like their riffs and their playing more than their vocals. I could never really get into this singer, but some of their songs had moments that I enjoyed at least. That was it. That was Bad 90s Mixtapes, the ska episode. I don't know when Fourth Wave Ska is going to come. I think it's long overdue. Surely somebody is going to revive this music at some points and actually make it cool and accessible for modern audiences. Until next time, I am the Jake Wheel. This was Bad 90s Mixtapes. I'll see you sometime in the future.